Thank you, Mark. All right, welcome to the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee. I'm the chair, Sean Kelly, and thanks to Sheila Alexander for putting this all together today. We're all here, and thank you for your time this morning. And we've got lots ahead of us in the next 90 minutes. First of all, I'd like to welcome our newest members of the committee, Summer Bertrand and Rhonda Smith. Summer, where are you?
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Summer. First of all, right off the top, just tell us a bit about yourself, where you work, any children, and thank you for applying to be on the committee. We're excited to have you. Why did you apply as well? So fill in the gap.
All right, I'll run through that. Thanks for calling me the other day and getting me prepped, Sean. I appreciate that. And it's my pleasure to be here. I'm happy to be here. I guess I'll start with myself. I'm actually a single mom. I have a daughter in grade 8 who goes to St. Michael's right now. She's transitioning over to attend Eastside next year into the foundations program there. As Rhonda knows, Rhonda and I know each other from the gymnastics club. Hudson is quite the gymnast, and she actually is a rep box lacrosse player in Tynedinega. So she's had some success and been published by Scholastic Canada in a resource for that. So it's been an interesting journey for us. I grew up in Sterling with my parents, who are still married after 45 years, which is quite a feat for our generation, anyways. And I have a younger brother who actually works for the Ministry of Education in Indigenous education as well. So he's in the Hamilton area. My mother's family are settlers to the area. My father was born in Tynedinega and is actually a survivor of the 60s scoop. So he was tossed around the system and then adopted at the age of 8 by the Bertrand family, who are very lovely people, so I've been told. And he was raised by them and given a very good life. So I actually attended the University of Ottawa for both of my degrees, and I began teaching in 2002 with the Kawartha Pine Ridge Board at Campbellford High School, which was a really great start to my career. And then I actually shifted to the Hastings Board in 2004, and I taught at Quinte up until the year before they closed. So my heart lies with Quinte. I love that place. It was an amazing section of my career. But in 2017, I became a they call us centrally assigned teachers. So I applied for a position in the Indigenous education portfolio. My official title is instructional coach for student engagement and success in Indigenous education. Sounds very lofty, and I hate to repeat it. But I'm currently there, reapplying actually for my job at the moment. My job is to support our Indigenous students in the system, primarily secondary students in 4 of our high schools. So I'm assigned to Center Hastings, Prince Edward Collegiate, the Virtual School, and Centennial. So we already have a lot of supports over at Eastside, where the bulk of our Indigenous population attends, but I rotate before pandemic times to those schools every day to assist students and their families in their quest towards graduation. So that looks very different for every student, obviously. So I was interested. I saw this come up online, and I was like, So I just clicked in and thought, I'll see what the application's all about. I think it's important to have marginalized voices heard in the process of and doing true work towards equity, diversity, inclusion, and reconciliation, all of those words. I think it's very important to have all of our voices heard. And I understand that in a smaller community, we sometimes have difficulty finding those people and having those people come forward, right? So I was happy to fill out the application. I'm currently a learner of my culture, obviously, because my father was separated from his culture. We connected with his family 5 years ago. That was quite a process. I'm learning the language. I'm not an expert by any means on my culture or my language, but I'm working towards that. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a question asker, so I will push people's thinking with questions.
Thank you so much, Summer. Thank you for that. Rhonda Schmidt is also new to the committee. It's her first meeting with us. Rhonda, tell us a bit about you and why you wanted to be on the committee.
I'm not sure I can do as well as Summer. That was pretty good. My name is Rhonda Schmidt. I'm a mortgage agent. I've been a mortgage agent for over 10 years here in the Belleville area. I'm here. I'm not originally from here. I'm originally from Sherwood Park, Alberta, but I guess a landed immigrant thanks to the military. So my spouse is retired military. And now with having 2 children, one was actually born here, and we moved here when the oldest was only 6 months old. So this is her home, and this is their home. So this is now all of our homes, because uprooting them is not fair, and we're not being posted anywhere. So this is it. I have a teaching degree. I have a math major, phys ed minor as a background. So you can see math and numbers are definitely my forte. As summer, my daughters, well, one just actually recently quit gymnastics, but wanted to go into dance and singing and was in the competitive tumbling. My oldest is still in the competitive tumbling. And if COVID hadn't hit, she would have definitely hit level 5 this year, which is a pretty big feat. We have an amazing club in the area. As far as the reason for being on the committee is, I think that it's important moving forward that we, that all people contribute to society and all people deserve respect and the platform to be heard. I am I'm part of a minority group in this area. So it's just to have a voice and to hopefully be heard and engage and do, my part and be part of Belleville and the growth of Belleville. And hopefully, depending on the future of the girls, that they can carry that on in this area or maybe in another area, wherever they land.
Well, thank you so much, Rhonda. Appreciate that, and welcome you and Summer to the team. Really appreciate this. Attendance, how we doing, Sheila? A good turnout today? I'm thinking that's a positive. Sheila, are you there?
Full complement, Chair.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof. Anybody making money today? That's good. Number 4, I need to get an approval of the minutes of March 23rd, 2021. We had a mover. Councillor Millette, seconder. Ruth, thank you. All those in favor? Good, thank you. No correspondence today. We'll roll into number 6 on your agenda. We have 2 guests with us today, and we'll welcome His Worship Mayor Mitch Panchuk of the City of Belleville, and we'll welcome the Honorable Todd Smith, Minister of Children, Community and Social Services for the Bay of Quinte and Ontario. So we'll start with you, Mayor Panchuk. Thanks for coming this morning.
Well, thank you very much, Sean, or Councillor Kelly. Do you want me to still introduce the minister, or?
Well, I'm hoping you can say a few words of encouragement for the team, and you can take it away introducing the minister.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you. No, welcome everybody. And again, I also wanted to extend my congratulations to Summer and to Rhonda. Again, I look forward to hearing about all the great work that this committee will be doing. I want to say thank you to the people that were on there before representing different organizations. And of course, my fellow members of council, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Millette, and Councillor Thompson. This is an important committee for us because while Belleville is changing, some of our institutions have to come into the 21st century along with it. And so the work is really important, and I look forward to seeing some of the recommendations coming out of this. It's really good that we have Minister Todd Smith with us today. Not only is he our provincial MPP at Queen's Park, but he's also the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services. And I think that when we talk about the Equity and Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Todd's really got his finger on a lot of the issues that we deal with in our province. The responsibilities of that ministry are immense. They deal with so much of a financial component to what goes on to support and defend people in what we consider to be the vulnerable sector of Ontario. And he also stands up for the full participation of people in our community and in the province. You know, for example, his ministry is also responsible for women's equality and safety and ensuring that that is there. He works with First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and urban Indigenous communities to ensure that they are accessing government programs and being able to participate. He also supports, his ministry also supports adults with developmental disabilities to ensure that they are able to play a full role in our community. And one of the things that, lastly, obviously, he helps immigrants and refugees settle and integrate into the province. And some of those are what we consider to be traditional areas of government programs to help support. But it's changing as well. And I think that I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say today for us here at our own local Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. We've gone through some changes as well to be more responsive to the changing needs of our community. And Todd, welcome to the meeting. We look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor, and it's great to be part of today's meeting, and welcome to Summer and Rhonda to the committee, and thanks, Councillor Kelly, for inviting me to come and participate today and tell you a little bit about what we've been up to here at Queen's Park and sort of my experiences, I guess, when it comes to diversity and inclusivity and inclusion. When I was first elected back in 2011, I was the critic for small business and red tape. And one of the first events that I went to in the summer of 2012 in that role was, it was a small business tour, but it was up into Brampton with the candidate. Her name is Pam Hundle, and she wasn't successful in the 2011 election, but we were in a minority government, as you may recall, after the 2011 vote. And so she had strong feelings about running again. She came really close. And part of the tour that day, she took me to a Gurdwara, a Sikh Gurdwara. And I'll tell you, for somebody who had never, ever experienced anything like that before, it was a life-changing experience. I had my family with me, so Tanya and Aruna's there, and Aruna married Tanya and I way back in 1999. But Tanya is... Tanya's father is from Antigua, and so, you know, and he's a big driver with the Napanee Multicultural Festival and has been for many years. Courtright Christian is his name, and but Tanya was with me, you know, so there I was with my black wife, and my two little kids were with me as well, and we went into this Gurdwara, and these were the most loving, welcoming individuals I had ever talked to in my life, I think. And they just made me feel like part of their family. And that's sort of the way that they have been. They've been part of my family now for 9 years. I've really become a fixture in the Sikh community up in Brampton, if you will. And in Toronto, visiting Gurdwaras for special events like Diwali and Vaisakhi, and with the Hindu community, Holi, and all of these different festivals that I think, you know, with the growing population that we've seen, particularly from South Asia in the Quinte region over the last number of years, things that we should be looking forward to celebrating with that growing community. But when I was there that day, Pam Hundle said to me, she said, "Boy, you really connected with those people." And I think it's about connecting with people. It's about taking the time to just get to know individuals and understand their culture and their faith and how important family is to them. And you know, they've been friends, as I say, for many years. At the time, Tim Hudak was the leader of our party, and word got back to Tim just how affectionate and strong the relationship was there. So I became our party's chair of ethnic outreach for the party. So I spent a lot of time in the Peel region, but also over in Scarborough. I got to know the Tamil community extremely well. People don't know this. It's not something that's well publicized, but I'm actually the founder of Tamil Heritage Month in Ontario. Look at me, the Tamil, right? But I I was responsible for bringing that legislation forward because I made such good friends in the Tamil community. As a matter of fact, one of them is just calling me right now and wants to talk to me about something going on with events around the Tamil community. So I was at Taipongal events every January in Scarborough and in Brampton, and just spending time with all of those individuals and creating those connections with the party, with the PC party. Very proud to say that we have the very first 2 Tamils ever elected to the Ontario legislature now as part of the PC caucus. Vijay Thanagasalam, who's a 32-year-old kid, and Logan Kanapathy, who's a great guy. He was a councillor in Markham and represents the Markham area. So, you know, I've made all kinds of really great friends in that role over the years. At Chinese New Year events, you know, I would attend those every February, and the list goes on and on. I became very, very involved in the multicultural community, which at that time, and that was only 9 years ago, was pretty much limited to the GTA, Ottawa, the GTHA, but there wasn't so much color in our community as you can attest to, but that's really changed over the last number of years. And so I think it's really important that your diversity and inclusivity committee is looking at how you can make those individuals feel welcome in our community. And it's not just people of color, it's our Indigenous community as well, which, as Summer knows, is right next door and actually in our community. And my wife, Tanya, who is a teacher at Eastside, and I'm sure Tanya and Summer have crossed paths a few times over the years. But Tanya is very well connected with the Tyendinaga students as well, and the Indigenous communities in our community, Indigenous students in our community. So I have a long history of dealing with the Indigenous community, and now in my current role as minister, as Mayor Panchuk mentioned, you know, I had the opportunity last February, just before COVID struck, to head up to the remote northern communities to visit some of those tough to reach communities that live in isolation, and just see the challenges that they're facing. Of course, Indigenous people in our communities in Southern Ontario face their own challenges, but boy, what an eye opener to visit those communities and see the kinds of things that they're facing. I'm responsible for the Black Youth Action Plan as well within my ministry, which I'm proud to say that we doubled in this year's budget just a few weeks back. And not only have we doubled the funding, but we've expanded the number of groups, community groups, many of them Black-led community groups that we're working with to ensure that our Black and racialized and Indigenous communities have the same opportunities that other young people have. And so we've had some great partnerships that we've created with universities, with those community groups, with police services. And I see Deputy Chief Chris Berry here. You know, the Toronto Police Service is one of our partners with the Black Youth Action Plan as well, Project Impact, which is a great program. But also creating opportunities with employers as well. You know, making sure that those employers know that these Black students are there and students of color, and ensuring that they're creating spots for those individuals in their businesses and in their companies. You know, so often you see companies trying to do what appears to be the right thing to do, and you'll have, you know, a number of people of color or Indigenous or Black employees, but quite often those employees you'll see are on the bottom floor. When you get closer to the executive at the top, there's not nearly as many Black employees or people of color working in those top positions. So just working with them to ensure they realize the value of hiring, you know, people of color and others. And the LGBTQ community, which is so important as well. And I mean, we, you know, now here in the legislature, obviously we had a premier who was openly gay, and Kathleen Wynne, and that was a great thing. You know, trying to encourage more and more individuals who are in minority groups to step forward and serve. And I know that's one of the things that Mayor Panchuk is very keen on, and certainly Councillor Kelly has been very keen on as well. And you know, trying to get you know, people from these sort of marginalized groups or you know, not as well represented groups involved in things like committees and certainly eventually putting their names on ballots and running in municipal elections. And it takes time for that to happen. It's taken a long time. Right outside this door here, where I am in the legislature, there's a picture of the very first parliament of the province of Ontario. And you can probably imagine what that looks like. I mean, it's about 60 gray beard men, right? And actually they joked that that was the first photoshopped picture ever, because there were so many people standing in the chamber that they had to actually had to take individual pictures of each man and then put them on the page and then make the picture after that. So that was the first Photoshop picture in history, they say, because they just couldn't get everybody to stand still long enough in the chamber to take the picture so that it was in focus. But now in the legislature, after those days, I mean, and there have been gradual steps, obviously. In 1943, we had the first 2 women that were elected to provincial parliament, and now you look at the parliament now here in Ontario, and the face of the parliament really does represent the province of Ontario. You know, we have the first Egyptian-born member of the provincial parliament who serves in our party, Sharif Sabawi. We have the first Muslim in the PC party, Khalid Rashid, who comes from Mississauga. You know, we have had a few Muslim members in the past. You know, Shafiq Qadri was a member of the Liberal Party, and Yasser Naqvi, a good friend of mine, was the House Leader prior to me becoming House Leader here at Queen's Park. You know, we have, you know, obviously I mentioned, you know, some LGBTQ members that are in the House now. We have the first Armenian-born member of the legislature, my friends Vijay and Logan, as I mentioned, first Tamil. Prab Sarkaria, you know, he's my little brother. He's in our cabinet. He's the Minister of Small Business and did an event with me with the local chambers a couple of weeks back. And he refers to me as the senior Sikh minister in Ontario, even though he's actually the only Sikh minister, but he refers to me as the senior Sikh minister. But we do have a changing face of our parliament. And I think it truly does represent the people in Ontario. And we've still got a ways to go. There's 47 women elected now, you know, out of 124 members. But we're getting there. It's increasing, and I think you'll see more women. Certainly the Liberal Party has made a commitment to have more women running as candidates in the next election, and young people too. And we do have a lot of young people in our caucus now, including Vijay, who's 32 years old, and Stephen Lecce, our Minister of Education, who's in his 30s, and Sam Osterhoff, and a number of very young members that are here. So we have some gray beards, and I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, although my beard is much grayer than it was when I started 10 years ago. Anyhow, so those are the kinds of things that that I'm seeing and that we're doing. There's a lot happening when it comes to, you know, working with our Indigenous communities, clearly both at the federal level and at the provincial level towards reconciliation. And you know, I've developed some great relationships in the Indigenous community, including Roseanne Archibald, who's our regional Grand Chief, who's amazing, and Alvin Fiddler. And, you know, there are problems along the way and different things that pop up, but we're working well with all of those different groups. Certainly with the Black Youth Action Plan, it's given me the opportunity to work closely with a lot of our Black leaders in our communities and make sure that we're providing that equality of opportunity to them. And so that's sort of where I'm coming from. I know you guys may have some questions for me on where we're going, but really look forward to seeing what becomes of this committee and the projects that result from the work that you're doing in this committee to just make newcomers to our community feel welcomed. And, you know, listen, there was nothing better, and it happened years and years and years ago, than the Belleville Waterfront and Ethnic Festival. I think it really gave all of the different groups an opportunity to showcase their community to the people. And I think that's really important, right? It was a great opportunity, a fun opportunity. And I think once we get out of COVID and we have the opportunity to resume some of those activities and grow those activities, reflecting the new faces that we see on the streets and in our community, that's going to be a great day. So let's get COVID looked after, and then you know, we can start to celebrate the new look of our community in the Quinte region and in Belleville for certain. So.
All right, thank you, Minister Smith. Do we have any questions from the committee? Just raise your hand and we'll let you ask the minister a question. Anybody? Dr. Aruna, go ahead. Your question for Minister Smith.
Yes, we're still married, Aruna. We touch and go at times, but no. 21 years now, isn't that amazing?
Doctor, just unmute yourself. I believe that might be an issue. Just the button there at the bottom where it'll say mute or unmute. Go down to that microphone you'll see underneath your name and just click on that. Looks like we with who's ever producing today's meeting. There you go, Doctor. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Minister Smith, for addressing the committee this morning. Did I hear you say that you have a project you take care of on women's equality as well? And what is happening there, and what is the plan, and what sort of programs are you planning for under women's equality?
Sure. So it actually falls more under my associate minister, Jill Dunlop's portfolio. It's within my ministry, but I do have an associate minister, Jill Dunlop, who's been working exclusively on women's issues. And she looks after the Children's Aid Society file, so child welfare as well. And so she's been dealing mostly with those things. When it comes to signing off on everything that she's been doing, I get to put my signature on it, but she's been largely involved there. But having said that, you know, she's very focused on a number of different pieces within that portfolio. First of all, you know, there's victim services. So that's a big part of what she's working with, violence against women. Making sure that those shelters are well funded and exist, and we've seen increased funding, and we've seen new shelters pop up, and so that the funding is there. She's really passionate about getting more women into the skilled trades. That's one thing that she's very, very focused on. And of course, we need more people in skilled trades, but we're really underrepresented when it comes to women. I think 4% of those with skilled trades are actually women. So that's changing, and she's really putting a push on it to try and encourage more women to get into that field. And then, you know, on pay equity and all those kinds of things, she's been very busy on those files, and she's been working on some new things that I probably would get in trouble if I announced them. So she's been very, very involved, and she'd be very open to speaking to this committee at some point in the future. I know she's been on Sean's radio shows a couple of times in the past, talking about the different projects that she's been working on in women's issues. But her real passion is the skilled trades piece. But obviously, there's a lot more going on in women's issues than just that.
Thank you,
Doctor. Thank you. Any other questions for Minister Smith? Go ahead, Kat.
Thanks, Chair Kelly. Good afternoon, or good morning, Minister Smith. Thank you for your all that information. It was really interesting, actually. My name is Kat Fisher-Andrews, and I am the coordinator of the local immigration partnership in the Belleville region through Quinte Immigration Services. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe speak to, I don't know if you can, the idea that we're going to be having a larger influx of newcomers coming in over the next few years, that we have much larger targets from the federal government in terms of that. And so in this community, we have one program that's linked to the Ontario Provincial Nominee Program, and we're trying to get more newcomers to come and work in this community. And I'm wondering if you could talk about training for employers in terms of anti-racism or inclusive systems that they can implement within their own companies and organizations. If there's some sort of training project that the provincial government is working on for that, or some information for employers that they can access.
Yeah, great. Thanks, thanks, Kat. Obviously, we're really excited to see more immigration. We need it. When I was the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, we were lobbying the federal government hard for more OINP spaces. That's the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, which you would know well in your line of work. But the provincial nominee programs exist in every province, and we were requiring or asking for a lot more spaces than what Ontario was getting. We weren't getting our fair share of those spaces, given this is where a lot of the people that immigrate to Canada end up and want to be, is in Ontario. So we're really pleased that the federal government did listen, and they've doubled the OINP program, which is great news. We've expanded it at the provincial level to all kinds of different new streams. So believe it or not, we had a shortage of truck drivers in Ontario, and so we've been able to open the OINP program up to truck drivers. Personal support workers is probably the biggest and most important one, given the fact that we've made commitments to build a heck of a lot more long-term care beds, and a lot of those announcements have been made, but it's more than just the bricks and mortar. You have to have the health human resources, and we need the PSWs desperately. So the OINP program has been opened up to include PSWs. There was also a great announcement that my federal colleague Marco Mendicino made just last week that will grant those who are already in the province or in the country working as PSWs to get permanent residency, which I think is fantastic news, and I think will only increase the number of healthcare workers into Ontario. So, you know, I do work fairly closely with Marco. He's been very good at, and we really have, as a whole, both levels of government, or all levels of government for that matter, working together really closely during the pandemic to make sure that we're targeting the areas that need to be targeted. So when it comes to immigration, our government and the federal government are both on the same page. I mean, we need more people. We, prior to the pandemic hitting, we had about 300,000 unfilled jobs. And you know, yes, I'm responsible for social services, and there are 1 million people in the province that are collecting OW or ODSP, and many of them just simply can't work because of their disability. But there are many who can, and trying to open the door and encourage people who are on social assistance to fill those jobs is something that we're working toward, but we can't just move enough people from social assistance to fill those jobs. We have to have continued immigration and a successful immigration program. So I hope that answers something. Oh, and the other piece was the training. Yeah, through the Anti-Racism Directorate, which is handled by the Solicitor General's office. It's not in my portfolio or training. But there are programs there. I'm not intimately aware of them, Kat, but there are programs that are there, and we can get you that information to Councillor Kelly to pass along to you.
All right. Thank you, Kat, for the question.
Thanks so much.
One more question for Minister Smith due to the time. Anybody else on the committee like to ask a question? Mr. Thompson, Councillor Thompson.
He looked like the Pope there for a second, the way he was waving his hand, but.
I figured Minister Smith maybe needs some little blessing before I asked him. And,
yes, all blessings are welcome these days.
Minister Smith, mental health, you know, is a very big concern, not only in Ontario, but across Canada. Is there any, and I know we can't solve it all, but is there any direction the provincial government is trying to work to maybe make more people available to deal with the mental health people that need the help? What's the direction of the Ontario government towards the mental health issue?
Yeah, so my colleague is Michael Tabolo. He's the Associate Minister within Health, but he's responsible exclusively for mental health. And I think he's actually been on Sean's show before too, maybe. I've heard him on the radio in Quinte recently and talking about what we want to do and where we want to target. He's put together a Roadmap to Wellness, it's called. And you can see that at the Ministry of Health website that talks about the huge investments that both the federal government and the provincial government have made. It's quite historic, actually. It's almost $4 billion altogether for mental health programs. We've been able to work with addictions and mental health locally. And just one of the examples, and Chris, the deputy chief, would be aware of this one, is the Impact project, where mental health counselors are now available to work and alongside our frontline police officers, not just in Belleville, but in the local Quinte region with OPP involved as well. So that's one of the programs that has been funded through the LIN and through Ontario Health and through, just one example, but there are many others. We've been working with Gary Laws and the team over at Addictions and Mental Health on some housing projects as well. We've just, with everything going on, unfortunately, it's been really, really difficult to nail down a lot of this stuff, because health, as you can imagine, is focused on, they're not just focused on one thing, but I mean, what's taking up most of their time is dealing with this pandemic. Yeah. But part of the pandemic and one of the sort of the underlying issues with the pandemic is the mental health crisis that's occurring at the same time. So ensuring that there are those resources there for individuals is very important. So Minister Tobolo has been working at that. There have been a lot of projects that have been announced across the province. But what I would say, Minister Tobolo would say that he wants to see that money invested with grassroots organizations that are actually making a difference. So if it's the police or addictions and mental health, those are touch points, right? Those are the real touch points where the funding needs to exist, and we're working with all of our partners. Children's mental health obviously is a partner in our school-based program now, because with the kids being out of class as much as they have been, there are real concerns there about children's mental health. We've invested in 211. You're probably aware of that free service 211 as well. Yeah, they've been very, very busy over the pandemic, especially in the last 6 or 8 months, and the number of calls that they're getting that are mental health related are going through the roof. So they're directing people in the right direction to receive the services, but getting that funding out the door into those grassroots organizations is happening. It's real important that it gets out there, because it's a crisis.
Thank you, Minister Smith. And part of the reason I asked that is because Councillor Millette and myself were both part of the Enrichment Center. And, we still hear from Sandy Sidworth how much demand is on their agency and how much more they need funding. And I realize there's only so much funding out there, but the grassroots, I think, that's part of that formula is places like the Enrichment Center, which is a grassroots that needs the help for not just the Enrichment Center, but all grassroots. So thank you, Minister Smith.
Yeah, it's real important. And housing, of course, is a key piece of that. And the federal government just announced more money yesterday in their budget for housing. We announced money in our budget for housing as well. And we've been working closely on the Canada Housing Benefit with the feds to ensure that there's more money available for affordable housing, social housing, but also supported housing and for women's money for women's shelters and the other part of my portfolio, which is individuals with developmental disabilities, as the mayor talked about. There are so many people out there that have adults with developmental disabilities. Their parents are still living and they're still living with their parents, and those parents need to know that there's going to be a place for their child, when they pass away. And so we need to do more on creating more housing for those with developmental disabilities too. So that's one of the pieces of the Canada Housing Benefit that we've worked on and been able to negotiate with the federal government. So hope to be able to see some exciting things happening in that sector soon too.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Thompson. Minister Smith, thank you. And thanks for sharing your journey and some of the work that the government is doing. And you were talking about your time in the GTA, just connecting through culture, what you experienced in your family and what other cultures actually offer. So it's enriched your family, and we appreciate your time here today for joining us here in Belleville.
Waheguru Jika Kalsa, Waheguru Jiki Fate.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Minister Smith. And I'm not too sure if Mayor Panchuk's going to stay with us. Mayor, thank you for popping in today as well.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'll let you and the committee get to work. Appreciate the invitation. And it's wonderful that we have such a resource in Minister Smith here locally to help us. So all the best.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to Minister Todd Smith. Moving right along, we're going to go to
I just blessed him.
7.1 Indigenous Land Declaration. We'll go to Councillor Millette. Hopefully you had a chance to see your attachment in the minutes. Councillor Millette, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope everybody had an opportunity to read what would be 3 examples of Indigenous land acknowledgement statements. What I've, for the new members today, just quickly, what I'm proposing and what has been missing from City Council and our city committees to date is just this. We do not at any point, as a matter of course, at any of our meetings, make an Indigenous land statement, and then it's long overdue because if anybody's been around any federal or provincial, most provincial bodies, the school board itself, when they meet, make the declaration, and it's a really very small token of recognition that we can do. And I don't use that word token for in a demeaning way. It's the very least, let's say, we can do to recognize Indigenous lands and the lands that we now occupy. So what I'm proposing, Mr. Chair, and after it, I am very happy to hear that Summer Bertrand is now with us on the committee. And if it has the blessing of our fellow members, might I take the 3 examples, and you know, we can certainly open it up for discussion at this point with the 3 examples we have. But what I would like to do is perhaps huddle offline with Summer on at some point. We can speak. We can share our coordinates and manage to get together and discuss this. But my end goal would be to have City Council at the beginning of every meeting make this land declaration and pass it along to every committee for each meeting that they begin, and make it a matter of course at every committee meeting of the City of Belleville, because each of the committees are representing City Council, and they make decisions that affect all manner of the city. And then again, this land declaration would become part, if it goes to council and is accepted by our City Council. Ideally, I would like to see it come before a council meeting in June for decision. So that's where we're at.
All right, thank you, Councillor Millette, for your work on this. You brought it forward last meeting, and here we are. We have some options. I'll just pass it around. Anybody on the committee have any comments about the 3 options? Feel free to raise your hand and we'll go to you. Let's go to Victoria. You're up.
Hi. So I wholeheartedly agree and believe that we should work to move forward with the land acknowledgement. At Public Health, we've been in the process of completing a land acknowledgement, but our preference was to ensure that there was appropriate community consultation that happened before we came up with something. So it wasn't just public health, just kind of coming up with our own statement, making assumptions. So I'm just wondering maybe how explicit we can be of potentially connecting with Chief Miracle or other local Indigenous organizations to get their feedback to ensure that it is appropriately representing their wishes with how we're acknowledging the land. And then I would also just make a point of, when it comes out, are there any other kind of meaningful actions that we can add to say it's not just the land acknowledgement, but what else is the city going to do to demonstrate that they actually and we actually care about reconciliation?
Thank you for the question. Chris, you had your hand up to comment on Victoria.
Yeah, and that I think would be some of the offline. I had meant to mention that. Thank you very much for bringing up Victoria. I was going to say that if Summer and myself, or Summer agreed, I'm probably assuming at this point that she'd help me out with this, but hey, you're the Indigenous education person. And I went, bingo. Thank you very much for showing up just at the right time. But I would most certainly reach out to the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte. But traditionally, and I know this because several years ago in my previous incarnation, as a journalist, I covered and we reported on the ceremony that was held with members, and I'm going to get this possibly wrong, the Mississaugas or Algonquin. Anyway, and again, it could be the traditional name of the Wendat or Anishinaabe peoples that we have in one iteration of this, that this was traditional land. So, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of work to do yet before we determine the wording so that we aren't disrespectful of any Indigenous groups that were in fact here many years before the colonizers arrived. And so, yeah, that's what I think we ought to look at, and it's absolutely part of the process. Again, I'm putting this out there just as a soft target of June. I know we have a council meeting June 14th. Here we are, April 20th, and I think before then, hopefully we can, with the right consultation, we can get the wording right, but hopefully we can come to the May meeting with something that resembles at least the statement. And from there, I agree. We should, we'll follow up the declaration by all means with more actions, but I think it's a start.
Summer, would you like to just comment on Councillor Millett's comments and see where we're at as far as what you're thinking?
You sure you want me to do that? No, I'm just kidding. I have lots of things to say about this, but again, we can talk about it at a different time, a little bit lengthier discussion. So I think before we start with any of this, in order for it to be honorable and respectful, everybody who is going to hear this needs to understand why. So Councillor Millett, you have a clear vision as to why. Is everybody who is going to be on council and going to hear this going to understand the why? So is there some back unpacking, scaffolding that needs to be done around the why of why you want this incorporated? Because obviously it's a great step forward, right? And as you said, there's lots of corporations, lots of institutions moving ahead with this. I've seen it done very, very poorly many times, and when it becomes a tick box of something we do around reconciliation, that's where it goes bad. So that would be my suggestion, is what we want to avoid, is that it becomes a tick box in what happens in a meeting or in a process, because that actually goes backwards for reconciliation, right? So I think we need to start with making sure that people understand why we would recognize original people on the land. There's a couple of logistical things that would have to be considered around, making sure it's not an Indigenous person doing the land acknowledgement. So I don't know if anybody would fall under that category, but Yeah, there's a couple things. Those statements were great. Probably all three of them combined would be a more inclusive, representative statement of our area. The Algonquin board is leaving out a large chunk of people, the Wendat people that were here. We also need to think too, moving forward, is everybody going to have proper pronunciation of the various nations? And I get that it's very hard. I mean, Mohawk itself is not a phonetical language, so it's it can be butchered pretty good. But I think some of those questions need to be considered as we move forward with this. Is sort of my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Summers. So before I summarize, I'm thinking that you and Councillor Millette will get together and present something to us in May, and then we'll have more conversation on that. And Councillor Millette's hoping to present it to Council on June the 14th. Is that how you're seeing this roll out, Councillor Millette?
Absolutely, and I appreciate Summer's expertise in that respect because, as she pointed out, you know, I'm just an old white guy trying to figure this out, and I don't want to put a foot wrong. And we, yeah. I absolutely agree. We have to do this for the right reasons and not just a tick box. I wholeheartedy agree that listen, I don't want this just to be mistaken as a, you know, as a gesture. Oh, look at us, you know, we're all woke on Native culture now because we make this statement. No, it's more than that. So I want it to be done right, and I want it to come from the right place. So
thank you, Councillor. Anybody else have any comments on this before we go to our next item? I see no hands. So thank you very much, Councillor Millette, on your work on that. Let's move down to 7.2, the Historical Declaration of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Councillor Millette sent us another attachment. He was kind enough last meeting to say that he would write up a nice report about the history of this committee. And Councillor, I'll go to you for some thoughts on what you presented to the committee.
Yeah, back to me again. Okay, basically at the last meeting, and again for the edification of the newer members on the committee, Reverend Dr. Runa Alexander at our last meeting had asked that some context of the origins of this committee be recognized, and I had Aruna had forwarded her take on or the historical background of the committee, and the original was quite a bit. So what I did was, again, having formerly been in a previous life a newspaper editor, I boiled it down to be light, tight, and bright. And what you have now, I hope, would be, you know, what we could use as the historical declaration, if you will, of the origins of this committee, if it meets with Dr. Alexander's approval and the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Millette, for your work on that. Doctor, you had a chance to read it. Does everything make sense in that report that Councillor Millette has outlined?
Yes, I'd like to thank Councillor Millette for the statement, and I think it encapsulates the substance of what I had presented very well. That would be my comment.
All right, thank you, Doctor. And we're in the process, or we will have maybe some leaflets once pamphlets that when we go out to things, we can certainly share the history of this committee, and Doctor was one of the key folks behind it. Any Councillor Millette, your hands up. Go ahead.
Yes, just one further point, Councillor Kelly, Mr. Chair, if you will. I was hoping, and I guess I could make a motion on to this effect, that with this declaration of the history of the committee, I was hoping that perhaps we might read this or circulate it at the first meeting each year, each calendar year of the committee. As we know that every 2 years, the committee makeup, it usually turns over or there are new members brought on board. So I think that a good purpose for this would be at the beginning of each calendar year as we begin to meet. We might make this part of our agenda going forward, just to remind everyone of the historical roots of the committee. And yeah, that's what I was hoping would be. It would be, you know, not only the version that we see before us and we're approving, but that it actually, you know, be enacted, that it's used as a statement and a reminder of our beginnings. So.
No, thank you. No, well said. And I don't see any problems with that, reading that once or twice or 3 times a year. It's all good. It's always nice to be reminded why we're here. Any other comments on that? I'd like to just continue to move on. Is that Councillor Thompson? You had your hand up? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Just want to make a comment. I think it's what Dr. Aruna Alexander, her page of some of the history of the committee is great, and then how Councillor Moret has broken down into a very short of what the committee was. I think it shows direction, and I just think it's honorable that we do this every year, because when we first joined this committee a number of years ago, Aruna was on it. She was very instrumental, as it says there, in starting this committee, along with the past mayor, Neil Ellis. And I was very honored to be the first chair of this committee. And I think it's important that we remember why we formed this committee and the direction we want to go in, because this committee is an extremely important committee. And we need to remind ourselves where we came from and where we're going. And if that's going to do it in that statement, that's very honorable. And I certainly look forward to maybe adopting that in the future or whenever it may be. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, for that. Appreciate it. Moving on to new business, I've added a 7 point.
Aruna wants to speak.
Oh, sorry. Okay, we'll go back to the doctor.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. I'm just wondering how you, as chair, and all members of this committee would feel about a 1-sentence addition that the first chair of the committee was Councillor Garnet Thompson. Garnet has been in our community and has contributed a great deal as well. Just how would you feel if Councillor Millett added that sentence? I think that would complete the.
I think that's a great idea, and I'm not where Summer and Chris are editing papers on a regular basis, but I could see it being put in right after former Mayor Neil Ellis on page 2 that we're giving somewhere, that the first chair of the inclusive committee back in the day was Councillor Garnet Thompson. I think we can work that in. Anybody else have any comments about that? Chris, you think you could?
Yeah, I think we're honoring the roots of it, and the fact that Mayor Neil Ellis, Reverend Dr. Alexander, and Councillor Thompson were instrumental in first launching it, by all means. And then it wasn't my intention. I should have been aware. Garney's always reminding me of what a pioneer he is in very many parts of the community. But I know I'm just pulling Garney's chain. But yeah, we'll absolutely get that worked in, and I'll pencil it in, and the finished product will be given to Ms. Alexander. And I think it's all good. We don't have to bring it back. We'll just insert it, and then we'll have it ready as part of the documents of this committee.
All right, thank you, Councilman. You good with that, Councilor Thompson?
That's very honorable. Thank you very much. And you know, you don't have to. But Millette, you know, got to get that job in, just like Minister Smith.
Yeah. Thanks, councilors. All right, it's not on your agenda, but I have a 7.3, and just if you just can stick with me, I have a couple of things. I spoke to the mayor. I think I brought it up last meeting. I spoke to the mayor, and I had a conversation with Minister Smith, but we'd like to do something. We'll see where we're at with the pandemic and COVID-19, but the Diwali festival, maybe we can do something in the fall. And Minister Smith said there might be some funding available. So we're hoping to do that. Also too, this past weekend, I saw this in the newspaper, and I don't know if anybody's really took notice of it, but it's Artists Against Racism. And there's a slew of like Margaret Atwood, Tom Cochrane, Sarah McLachlan, Celine Dion, Shania Twain, a bunch of Canadians have stepped up. I went to their website on the weekend, and it's Artists Against Racism. And there's current artists, some artists that have been around for a while. I went to their website. They have radio public service announcements, television commercials like PSAs, and print. So I'm going to reach out to, if with the blessing of the committee, I'll reach out to some of our friends in the media business and see if they will put this in their papers, on their social media sites. It's all free. We don't pay for it. And I'm thinking, why not use it? Anybody have any comments on that?
What paper was that, Sean?
I think it was in the Toronto Star, on the Sunday Star. I got it. It was just a little insert. So it's called Artists Against Racism. You can Google it. Any thoughts? Are you okay if I kind of move forward and just ask if we can do something, and I'll have something for the next meeting? Any comments?
Good idea. Good idea.
All right, next. I know that she sent me an email, and I didn't want to put the links on this meeting. One of our colleagues here, Kat, who's right in the loop, because we had Minister Smith and the mayor coming. I didn't want to drag it out. But Kat, I was hoping that you could just touch on what you sent to me about 2.5 weeks ago, the link that had BC, community in British Columbia, and Kingston, and how easy they put together a really positive message in their community via storytelling. And that's something that we'll bring to the next meeting as well, to see if we can do it ourselves. If you just want to give us a little update on that, Kat, to all our colleagues.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. It was just an idea that I was looking at some of the anti-racism videos that were produced by other LIPs and settlement services. And Kingston had a campaign a couple of years ago called Say Hello. And it was actually sort of more like just pictures of newcomers with, you know, statements about what they do in the community and who they are. And so I was thinking, and the other video was produced by the BC Okanagan area, and it was an anti-racism video. It was a great video. It was maybe a little bit more in depth than what we would want to do, but I can share that information with or, you know, you have it, Councillor Kelly, but I can share it as well with everyone. And it's just an idea that maybe we could put together something, a campaign with a video that talks about the people in our community that may have experienced racism, or that are, you know, people of color or minorities, that want to talk about who they are, what they do, you know, what they contribute to our community. It's just an idea. I wanted to sort of throw it out there to see what people think of trying to do something like that with this committee.
Yeah, I love it. I think I looked at those videos a few times, and I just think there's so much potential, and we could do this. It would be cost effective, nearly next to nothing, because of the technology with the phones we have. And I think myself, after looking at the Say Hello campaigns in BC and Kingston, I was just thinking, how could we kind of take their idea, but make it a little different and make it our own? And I thought, and we can have this discussion at the next meeting, but just they could tell their story and somebody's helping them tell their story, like recording it over. But it's like, hi, we're the Kelly family and we moved from Ireland, and they kind of tell their story, as I said, instead of being a pre-produced documentary, if you will. Do you see where I'm going with this, Kat?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was kind of my idea too. I mean, we don't, we could have, you know, other ideas about how we want to frame people's experiences.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be them talking about themselves. I mean, some newcomers especially are kind of afraid to do things like that, but I'm sure that there's lots who do want to talk about their experiences. And yeah, I think it's a great idea too. I'm sort of looking for feedback from others to see if they think that that's how we want to frame it. How do we want to approach people? And it doesn't have to be long. It can be very short, but it could be something that we play throughout, you know, the year once we've produced that, or throughout a couple of years, and make a campaign out of it.
Thank you for that, Kat. We'll get the videos and everything for the next meeting, and we'll pick up that discussion. Before we call for the next meeting, which will be virtual in May, I'm just going to go around. Ruth, anything to mention today?
No, I don't think so. Nope.
Thank you, Chris. We've heard lots from you. Victoria, last comment?
Nothing to add. Thank you. It was nice to be here today.
All right, Kat, lots. We've heard you speak. Deputy Chief. Chris, anything to say?
Sorry, just taking myself off mute. Nope, nothing. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Doctor, final comments?
No, I've said enough.
Thank you. Rhonda, any thoughts? Your first meeting, did you survive okay? How do you rate your performance?
Yeah, no, it was really good. It's informative, and obviously it's just going to take a little bit to, you know, get in and understand and go through the process, but thank you very much.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Councillor Kelly, I forgot something.
Yes.
Councillor Kelly, we have on our committee someone who's been working very hard in our community. We talked about health earlier on, and Victoria Law has been vaccinating people in our community long hours.
Right.
Long hours, and we need to recognize her.
Good point, Doctor. Yes, Victoria, thank you for everything you're doing and all your teammates. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciated. Yes, lots of long days, but know that it's very, very important way to be spending our time.
Thank you. And Summer, your first meeting, you did very well. They get 5 stars. So how did it feel today?
Well, I'm glad I got a rating. That was important to me. It was great. Yeah, something Kat just said made me think of a resource I just read, and it was called White Fragility, and I was looking up on my phone as we did it, but it's a very, very good book for those of you that are interested in a good read, and it talks about being a white person and understanding and racism. So it's interesting, you know, living in this community and experiencing racism all the time. It's a good read for people that want to be advocates and allies in the work of racism. So it's a good read.
Thank you, Summer. Garnet Thompson, are you still here, Counselor? Oh, he dodged. And Sheila, thank you very much for everything.
Oh, Chair, I just have a couple of comments plus 3 more pages.
Okay.
Oh, no. I'm just hoping that if Victoria was on duty next week on the 29th, that she use a small needle for me.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like, Chair, would you like a motion for the declaration that we suggested? I think Councillor Millette was going to make that motion. I've got it documented, but I don't have the 2 names, and we'd need a motion for adjournment as well.
Okay, 2 things. We're going to bring it back. I think at this point, Sheila, I don't think we're ready to adopt it, so I don't think we need a motion. I was going to ask Summer to stick around when we sign off, just so we can share coordinates here. The other thing is the date for the next meeting. I see you have it as May 25, but that's a city council meeting.
Is that a Tuesday?
That's a Tuesday after.
Oh, it's a long after the long
after
weekend.
Monday, May 2/4, and I have it on my calendar as a city council meeting. So,
Chair, would you like to delay it a week?
Yeah, sure. We can move it back. I mean, there's some on council can handle 2 meetings on one day, but there's others that struggle with that. So I'm good to move it back.
Not
well,
going there.
Normally, I'm told, and I would acquiesce to the if Councillor Thompson didn't have to go off somewhere for a nap, that I would acquiesce to his experience. But normally we keep council days clear of any other meetings.
Yeah.
But anyway, if we push it, the 26th is open on my calendar.
How does a Wednesday feel for people? Are you okay with a Wednesday meeting?
It's okay.
Perhaps, Chair, they could just respond and then we'll get a consensus.
Or we can do a doodle poll.
Yeah, we'll let Sheila deal with that. We're open the 26th or the next Tuesday after. Now I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Councillor Millette, seconded by Victoria. You made the minutes, Victoria. All those in favor? Hey, thanks for your time today. Enjoy your afternoon.